Hey, my name is Justin, and I'm a portrait and event photographer based out of Kentucky. In this video, I'll be sharing with you the gear that I bring with me on my shoots. So without any further ado, let's get right into it. So my camera bag revolves around the Nikon Z6 since it is my main camera that I use to photograph. I know there's a lot of other cameras out right now, but to be honest with you, I've already had enough working experience with Sony and Canon at the higher level cameras, such as the Sony A9s and the Canon 1DXs and Rs. But to be honest with you, some of those cameras are kind of overkill, and I've been very fortunate enough to be able to gauge what kind of camera that I actually need. Because a lot of people, they just kind of get the camera that they crave the most, you know, like they want the latest and greatest. But I've been very fortunate enough to have access to top tier gear, and with that, I've been able to deduct that the Nikon Z6 is actually the best camera for me, because it has everything that I need and a little bit more. It doesn't let me down, and it's always just the right amount of, gear for me. So I know that one of the reasons that people tend to stay away from the Nikon Z6 Mark I is that it only has one XUD card slot, and I know that for a lot of people that automatically knocks the Z6 out of even thinking about purchasing it, because people like the redundancy of having two card slots. For me personally, I'm okay with just running one XUD card, since I very much trust the XUD card over a standard SD card. From what I've seen people usually use these. They use the SanDisk Extreme Pro cards, right? And these are fine, but they're like 15 bucks. You get them off the shelf at Best Buy, whatever. They're a quick pickup, right? And with the Nikon, it uses XQD cards, which are fairly more, expensive. They feel more robust, and I very much trust them more. But still, it's one card, and a lot of people do feel uncomfortable with that. But otherwise, I don't really mind only using one XQD card. I have never had a single problem with them, and I hope it stays that way. And until I upgrade to the Nikon Z6 Mark II, I'm totally fine with my Nikon C6, because it's just worked for me and it's never once failed me, and I trust it. So yeah, that's why I use the Nikon Z6, even though it only has one XUD card slot. So now from going from camera body, we're gonna go talk about the lenses. So in my kit, I use the Nikon lenses, and they are the Nikon 35, the Nikon 50, and the Nikon 85mm. With these three lenses, I cover just about every range that I need. So with the 85mm, I have to be honest, the 85mm is probably my least used lens, because it's kind of telephoto, right? So with event photography, I'm usually trying to capture a scene. There's lots of people. Let's say I'm doing a wedding. I'm trying to get very environmental shots, because I want them to remember the venue, who was there. And so that is why the 85 is not really one of the lenses that I see myself picking up the most. Matter of fact, it's my least used lens. So you might be wondering yourself, if I don't use the 85 and I don't use the 50, then what lens do I use? And that would be the Nikon 35mm 1.8S. So this lens does everything that I need a lens to do for me, okay? So the 35mm focal length for me is perfect. It's just the right amount of wide to where things don't get distorted too much at the edges. The 35mm is super good as a macro lens, even though it's not officially named that, but the focus distance is really good on it. So I can get detail shots, I can get wides, I can get portraits with it, I can get just about anything that I need from an event with this one lens. And honestly, this lens lives on my camera, except for when I'm doing portraits. Whenever I'm doing portraits, I will pick up the 50 and I will pick up the 85. But whenever I'm just doing an event where I can't be swapping out lenses every 2 seconds because of obvious reasons, I can't just be in the middle of, the bride walking down the aisle and just swap out a lens. But I can't do that. That's why I run the 35, because I find it the most versatile. For my style personally, I like wide shot. That's why I don't really mind not having too many close-ups. I do have a second shooter that I work with, or I am the second shooter, in which case they can just tell me whatever I need to do. If they tell me just do your thing, then I'll be rolling with the 35. But otherwise, this lens has never let me down. Focuses super fast. The combo between the Z6 and the 35mm in low light, it's never hunted for focus during those low light parts of the event, such as the dance or you know, being inside of a church where it's not very well lit, I have never had a single problem with this lens. It's always performed very well. If I want to nitpick at it, maybe the only gripe that I have about the 35mm is that it's not as sharp as the 50 or the 85. The image quality from the 35 is so good on its own that if you were to compare it to the lens, you would just be robbing yourself of the joy of using it, because it's a great lens. But if you really want to be picky about it, yeah, it's not as sharp. That's it. That's the only downside about it. It's not as sharp compared to these new lenses that have come out, but if you don't compare it to anything else, this lens is absolutely great. Like, I love everything about it. All right, moving on from lenses, we're gonna go to cards. So in my camera bag, I have two different types of cards. I have the XUD card and I have a standard SD card. And obviously my Nikon does not take the standard SD cards. These are more for when I'm using a backup body, whether it's from somebody that I'm helping or a second shooter. I use these SD cards then because they're the most common cards that fit into most cameras. So in regards to XUD card, I carry around 4 of them, and I find that that's more than enough. I never blow through more than like 100 gigabytes at an event, because the Nikon's photos are about 24 megapixels, I believe. And whenever I do shoot video, I'm recording at 180p at 24 frames per second at high movie quality. But even then, I don't find myself filling these cards up enough. So 4 for me is just right to last me a whole event from start to finish. So something that I find useful, but it's not really in my camera bag, but it's on the thing that's in my camera bag, if that makes sense, is this. So this is a vinyl sticker with a 35 on it. And what that indicates to me is that whenever I go into my bag and I open it and I look into it, I can just see immediately this sticker pop up right there. And I know that if I reach into my bag and I pick up that lens, it's gonna be the 35mm. Why? Because I use these primes, and from the back, they kind of all look similar. And before these stickers, I had a really tough time figuring out which was which, and it was costing me, you know, precious moments that I could be out shooting instead. This is a nice to have. It's not a must have, but it's definitely a nice to have. They're not that expensive, and for the functionality that they have, they're really good. Because, you know, you can just take a piece of tape and then just write on top of it, and bam, you're done. But these just kind of look nicer, and they just last longer. They don't look gross. You know, if you put I've seen people put tape, and then that tape starts to look dirty, collects dirt, all that stuff. And with these, I've had these for quite a while, and they still look just like new. So the next obvious thing is just batteries. Pretty simple, right? I have 4 of them, and throughout a 12-hour event with the Nikon Z6, shooting both stills and video, I don't find myself going through more than 2 batteries. And even then, once I get to the 3rd one, I already had the other 2 that are depleted charging. I do bring my charger with me. I find an outlet and I just leave my batteries charging there, and it's worked out for me that way. So yeah, 4 batteries is all I need. So I would always recommend that you have a backup camera, and just like that, I take my own advice. And the backup camera inside of my camera bag is the Fujifilm X100V. This camera is super great, super cute little portable camera. So up next in what's in my camera bag, I have these filters. I don't find myself using filters for stills too often, so that leaves video. So the main thing that I use filters for is for neutral density filters. I need to cut out light so that I can have the aperture that I want when I'm outside and it's sunny. Otherwise, I don't think I would even carry filters if I didn't shoot video, because for stills, you can very easily control the amount of light you let into your camera, but with video, it is a completely different story. Right here, I have the Peter McKinnon Mist Edition 2. I kind of regret getting this. It's not really much of a staple in my bag as I would have liked it to be. It does have its own little look, but overall, I can't justify buying that over just a standard neutral density filter. So if you're on the fence between getting a standard ND filter and the ND mist filter, I'll just get the regular ND filter because you can use it in more applications, versus the mist filter, which you can't remove the mist and it'll go forever on your footage. So if you're between the two, I would just recommend you get a normal neutral density filter, because I don't find myself using it very often, and it just doesn't fit the look whenever I'm being a second shooter. It would look really weird if I were a second shooter for video and my footage is misty and the main camera is not. So with that in mind, I would recommend that you just get a standard ND filter. So next up after that is the Polar Pro Circular Polarizer. And to be honest, I don't use it often. I kind of just bought it because, you know, everyone needs a circular polarizer. I never know when I need to work around glass or work with glass reflections, but it's just in my bag. It's a nice what if to have, and I don't really mind carrying it. So next up on my camera bag is the Peter McKinnon 2 to 5 stop normal neutral density filter. Now this is nice. I wish I had gotten a 5 to 8 or 9 stop neutral density filter instead of the Peter McKinnon Mist. This isn't what I hoped it would be, and I regret my purchase, and I wish I had gotten a set of neutral density filters such as the 2 to 5 stop and the 6 to 9 or 8 stop, whatever it is. I wish I had that one instead of the Mist filter. So I have these two step-up rings. They're also by Polar Pro, and they are a 67mm to 82 and a 62mm to 82. So they have the largest thread size that Polar Pro offers at 82mm. My prime lenses, they use 62mm and 67mm threads. So with that, I just use these rings, and my filters, buy them once, use them for all my lenses. Super easy. All right, coming up next in what's in my camera bag is probably the piece of equipment that I most, besides my cameras, I'm most excited about. And it is this. This is a little pouch. It's by Peak Design, but that's not what's important. What's important is what's inside of it. And as you can tell by I'm holding a blower, this is my cleaning kit or my emergency camera. Oh man, I spit on my sensor kit. And I gotta say, the things that are in here, I very carefully selected, and I've used it, and I've tried and true it. This is everything that I use here. Has saved my butt thousands of times, and this is probably what I hope will help you on your photo shoots. So let's get into it. So starting off, you know, standard face mask because 2020. With this, these are earplugs, and that is because when you are at a wedding or a quinceañera, if you have been to these parties, you know how loud they get, and sometimes I need to move around. And more specifically, I need to move around the front, which is where the DJ usually is. So I want to be able to hear past the age of 30, so that's why I wear these earplugs. So I do wear earplugs when I'm at an event, and that is to save my hearing. Coming up next, with the fluid that I use to clean my sensor, that would be Eclipse. I do use that. It's an optic cleaning filter, but at the same time, you can use it for your sensors. So even though on the Eclipse thing it says optic cleaning fluid, as you can see when I put it down this way, direction for digital sensors. So you can use this to clean your lenses, or what I use it for is my camera sensor. Next in the camera kit is the Zeiss lens wipes. So these are probably the most basic thing in there because they're just so generic. I got these at Walmart and they work. The only thing that I don't like about them is that whenever I do use them, the drying process sometimes takes longer than I would like to. And sometimes if you're not careful enough, it does leave streaks. So this is probably one of the many options that I give myself to clean my lenses with. Coming up next is this. So this is probably the more higher quality sensor swabs that I have. And don't get me wrong, I would feel comfortable using either of these. I've used both of these, don't get me wrong. But these are higher quality because they are, I forgot what brand they are from, but they're the same ones that make the Eclipse fluid. So I kind of trust these a little bit more, if that makes any more sense. I have a ridiculous amount of them with me at all times because I just never know when I'll need them. And so I have had it happen where somebody spit on their Sony sensor as they were changing lenses because they were talking just like this. So imagine that you're talking, you undo your lens, you pull it back, you're talking to someone, blah, 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 and you spit all over your sensor. I did rescue them with my little bag here, and I managed to clean out their little sensor, and I was the hero for the day with that. Coming up next is a little ProMaster pen. So what it does is that it's a little brush. So you see it's got little bristles right here. And in the back, it's got this little spot remover where it has this surface where you can just brush around on the optic surface. Just try and single out spots that you may see. You can dab it, you can swipe it, whatever you feel comfortable doing. But yeah, little ProMaster brush. Got these sticky notes. Never know when I just need to write something down and give it to someone. Maybe it's settings, maybe it's where they need to be, maybe it's a change of plans and I very quickly have to jot down whatever we're doing and give it to them to the new location or whatever it is that we're doing. So I have this little peak design bag. It's also in that bag. So basically what's in here is my anchors in case I need more or in case one of them breaks. I haven't had any of them break, but just in case. And sometimes I do use the peak design bottom plate, so I do have the key for that in here. So just keep all that nice and neat in there. And next up is disposable cleaning tissues. So these are for your lenses. And you put the fluid on here and then clean your lenses. Or let's say you see something on your lens, you just pull one of these out and try and wipe it off. Very versatile, very useful. So next up, I got two of these. So this is a Nikon lens cleaning fluid, and this is ROR. So this is residue oil remover. So with this, it is safe for multi-coated optic surface. And basically what it does is in the name, it specifically targets oils on your lenses. And me personally, sometimes I do be having a lot of oil on my fingers because my face is kind of oily. And so whether you just ate and accidentally, you know, touch your front element, this really has saved my butt several times and definitely a staple in my bag. And honestly, that's about it. Very simple, but you know, it took me a while to put all this stuff together. I have used everything in here, and I would definitely recommend that you have something similar instead of your camera bag because you never know when you have to clean your sensor or your optic surface. So I need to bring this up because I noticed it and maybe it's something you haven't thought about or heard before. So basically, whenever I'm out on these events, they are quite long. They are about 12 hours long, 10 hours long, whatever. And I'm out there, I'm on my feet, I'm moving around, I'm getting hot, I'm getting sweaty. You know the drill. So with that in mind, I bring deodorant. Not only do I bring deodorant, I also bring a spare shirt. Why? Because towards the end of the event, I'm wrapping everything up, people are saying goodbye, it's been a good event, everyone's having a blast, and I gotta say bye to the couple, the people that I've met throughout the day, you know the drill. And nothing would make me more, you know, nothing would make the earth want to swallow me up more than not smelling nice or smelling like I've just worked for 12 hours, you know? So with that in mind, I do bring an extra deodorant with me and just put that on whenever I need it and swap out my shirt, smell decent until I go home because you do be smelling like 12-hour photographers sometimes. Very important to just make sure that you are pleasant to be around, in my opinion. Another thing that goes with that is that throughout a 12-hour day, I sometimes may be talking a lot or just giving directions. And me personally, my lips get kind of dry. So to combat dry lips, I do have Burt's Bees chapstick. And this just helps out with keeping my lips not dry. And very helpful because sometimes, yeah, lips be dry. And to go along, to just wrap that all up, sometimes events are outside in the middle of the day. You know, we have that one point in our event where we're just outside and we need sunscreen. Not only because it protects you, it is also good if you have tats. So I have a tattoo on my arm. It's obviously out in the sun, exposed sometimes. I wear short sleeve shirts like this one on my event days. So sunscreen can protect your skin, protect your tattoos, and just keep you from looking like a tomato the next day when you spend 6 hours out in the sun photographing or videographing your event. So with that in mind, these three would be my miscellaneous tip for you that maybe you just didn't think about before. Sunscreen, deodorant, and an extra shirt, and lip balm, because these things kind of are an oversight, but to be honest, I think that we should be as pleasant to be around as possible. So with all that said, that just about wraps up the video. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you found this helpful or maybe even entertaining. And those are all the things that I bring with me on my shoots, my events, and anything in between. It's not really that complicated because I figured out I don't bring very much fluff with me on my shoots because I figured out what I do and don't need, and all the stuff in my bag, as if right here, just does what I need to do, and I don't need to be bringing, you know, Pelican case after Pelican case of gear that I may or may not use. This is very simple, very easy, just bag breakdown for me, and it's just a random amount of gear for what I do. So yeah, with that in mind, the only thing that I could change or add would probably be having a second Nikon mirrorless body, probably the Z6 Mark II, or I would be just as fine with a Z6 Mark I. Other than that, I don't think there's anything else I would add to my kit because I have it all figured out. And everything that I have in my bag as is just works for me. Thank you guys so much for watching. My name is Justin, and if you like this video, make sure to leave a like and subscribe for more content like this. Peace.